In the words of our maestro, Ayo, welcome back. It's the Boston Sports Brothers. You have two brothers here with us today. We have all the brothers in different places, but there was so much on the table that we couldn't not go a week without an episode talking about what went down in the Boston sports realm, also with what went down in the National College Basketball Tournament as well. So, Big E, happy Monday. How we doing?
We are doing great. We are got to recap a wild week that was. So I'm
Happy
excited.
Tuesday, I should say.
Yeah, I let that slide. It's all good. We're normally record on Mondays, but we pushed it to Tuesday this week. Wanted to try and give the bros an opportunity to see if we could get more than just two in today this week. But life happens, and Sammy and I are here to shepherd the ship and bring you guys all the goodness that happened this past week, the good and the bad, and everything in between.
Agreed. And where better to start off than the Sweet 16? I mean, what a crazy tournament that it's been. Brackets busted everywhere, upsets that we didn't see coming, like always. Big E, what are your thoughts on the whole entire thing? Because there are a few teams that really surprised me.
Yeah, I would say let's start with the Sweet 16. I want to pick it up with Thursday, and honestly, Thursday for the most part there were two decent games, and then there were two games that were kind of not really great. The two games that weren't great, Arizona and Arkansas, not because it wasn't a high scoring affair. Arizona put up 109 points and Arkansas put up 88, but seemed like Arkansas was playing catch up the entire time. Houston and Illinois, Houston really couldn't hit a shot. Illinois, they won by 10 points, but it felt like it was a much larger spread throughout that game. And then Iowa, Nebraska was a really, really interesting game because Nebraska had a great opportunity to kind of seal that game, and they kind of fell apart late in the second half, and Iowa surged. So congrats to Iowa for the upset there. You know, the 9 seed making it all the way to the Elite Eight, beating Nebraska. But the game of the day for me was Texas versus Purdue. Texas was a team that was an 11 seed. They had to play in the play-in game to even make it to the field of 64. Won in the first round, second round, made it to the Sweet 16, and almost pulled up the upset against number 2 seed Purdue, just losing by 2 points. Obviously, the bros here feel a little bit of an affinity to the University of Texas, Hook'em Horns. We were there in September for Mr. One Gabe's bachelor party. So I think we all have kind of adopted Texas as one of our teams at this point. So a little heartbreaking for that, but you got to give credit to Purdue and their coach, Matt Painter. He is an awesome, awesome coach
He
and
is
did a great job
good
to put his
program.
team in a position to win. So that to me kind of sums up where we were on Thursday. But I think Friday had such an amazing slate of games. So Sam, I'm going to throw it over to you to talk a little bit about what happened on Friday.
Well, really, I just want to touch base on two quick points about Thursday. First off, you're completely right about Texas being our kind of like unofficial school.
Hook 'em.
When I was putting the script together today, I put like just like an orange, thing just because I just like doing that. It's just, I put the team colors for the teams for the listeners. I like found myself going into custom color and I like found out where that burnt orange was because it's not orange. It is not orange. It's burnt orange. Okay.
It's burnt.
There's a
Yeah.
difference. But really, again, you kind of touched on it and I'll just really touch on it really quickly is Iowa, coming out of nowhere. It's kind of defying the odds, upsets all along the way. That really for me was my game of that Thursday. I know that Texas Purdue was a good game, but for me really it was Iowa Nebraska just because of Iowa and the lengths that they've come throughout this whole entire tournament. But switching over to Friday for me, that was the more bigger one because that had the most social media buzz around it. I think just with if you're a follower of our beloved Barstool Sports, there was a huge bet between one El Prez and Rico Bosco, who I believe covers college basketball for
He does. He
Barstool.
does.
Okay, so
Yep.
so he's
And for some
college.
reason, he's a giant Alabama fan, which I don't know why, but he
Yeah,
is.
and just for this tournament has not been doing well at all. And for the listeners, Dave Portnoy, who's the owner of Barstool Sports, bet this guy Rico Bosco that he would double his salary for the next decade. That's right, 10 years he would double his salary if Michigan beat Alabama, and if Alabama beat Michigan, if Michigan beat Alabama, he would have to do a podcast with his arch nemesis, Jeff
Men of all.
Nadeau, Men of Honor. I don't know if you saw any of the videos of the last time the two of them were together, but they really do not like each other. So this, if anything, Dave, I think, is kind of bringing people together by doing this. I find it kind of amusing. But between that and then again, our beloved, also UConn being another one of our teams, just because, we're up in the Northeast, again, kind of keeping on, trucking on, and getting to the next round, I think was another big one as well, especially just to see the women's team, not to jump into women's basketball, but to see them kind of continuing on that same train, it kind of brings you back
I got
to
I
when they
got a
both
note
won it.
about UConn men and women's as we get towards the end here. So just you wait. But I think the other game that I want to touch on here too, because I think it's gotten lost a little bit through the excitement of what happened in the Elite Eight. But that St. John's Duke game was
Yeah.
one of the best games I've seen in the tournament as well. And the same thing with the Michigan State UConn, like very tight game, played
And
very
even Iowa
close.
State and Michigan State, you had an upset there. You had tight games. It was just
I would say the Iowa State Tennessee game was a little bit more of a blowout. That was a little bit more reminiscent of that Houston Illinois game. So just maybe not as exciting, but at least 2 out of the 4 games were very
yeah.
very tight. And then obviously Michigan Alabama had juice because of the Barstool stuff. But that St. John's Duke game was great. I mean, say what you want about Rick Pitino and who he is. I think obviously as Celtics fans, we feel a certain way towards Rick Pitino, but god damn it, is he one hell of a college coach. And I'm excited to see what St. John's does
College.
next year. Yeah, I said college. He's an
No, I know, I
amazing
know.
college.
No, no,
He's an
no, I
amazing
know.
coach.
Yeah, he
He
is.
ruined the Celtics, but he's a
Professional.
great
I don't know about that so much.
he's a great college coach. And so
Yeah,
I think he's great for the game of college. And
he is.
yes, I think obviously they had a tough task going up against Duke. Duke was heavily favorites. They kept that game tight, and it was tight throughout. Shout out to the Red Storm and what they were able to do. And then also shout out to Michigan State in the UConn game, just because you have two titans of coaches with Dan Hurley at UConn and then Tom
Mhm.
Izzo in
Yep.
Michigan State. And it was a 4-point game, tight all the way through. Honestly, between those two games on Friday and then the Texas Purdue game and the Iowa Nebraska game on Thursday, pretty excellent Sweet 16, which set up a really awesome Elite Eight here. So going into
Agreed.
Saturday, we have Michigan versus Tennessee. And, that really kind of was what we all expected to be. Michigan outclassed them in every single way. Tennessee was a 6 seed, I believe. Michigan, number
Mhm.
1 seed, doing exactly what we expect that 1 seed to do. Arizona versus Purdue,
Same thing.
also kind of ho-hum. Like Arizona is one of those teams that a lot of people have picked as their favorite to win the championship this year. They
15
dominated
point win.
by 15 points.
Yeah,
And then we
I
got
mean,
Sunday.
now
Sunday
that
was
what the tournament's
quite.
all about.
Yep, and before we get to the game of the day, let's just cover the first game that happened there. And this is the one where I think water finds its level. Iowa went on that kind of, I think a lot of people don't want to say they were Cinderella because they were a 9 seed and they play in a, major conference. They weren't a mid-major, but got to give credit to them. Making it all the way to the Elite Eight as
Cinderella
a 9
story.
seed is huge. But they
Big.
faced the buzzsaw in Illinois, who was a 3 seed, one of those teams that people looked at as making a run this year. They won by 21 points. It was really never close.
Yeah.
Iowa started out a little bit hot, but Illinois, again, water found its level and did great. And then we have the game of the day, the game of the tournament, in my
I was gonna
opinion,
say the
at this
game of the
point.
tournament at this point. Yeah,
This might have been the game of the
honestly.
last couple of years. And it's just, I mean, let's just talk about the fact it's UConn and Duke. You have the perennial team that's always there in Duke. They always have the players. They're always, in the mix. And then realistically, since the 90s, you have UConn that's been in the
UConn,
mix
who's
consistently as well.
whether it's men
And
or women's.
yeah, and I think, for us in New England, we really don't have a basketball team from a college standpoint that is competitive all the time
Sorry,
because,
URI.
well, URI hasn't been great over the last couple of years.
Since
UMass has
Lamar Odom.
absolutely sucked since the Canby years.
PC's okay.
BC's been bad for
Or
the last couple of years
PC.
too. Oh,
P as in
PC.
Paul.
But BC has been bad the last couple of years. Providence is rebuilding after Ed Cooley left.
Agreed.
Realistically, UConn is kind of all we got at this
Yeah.
point. And the game was an interesting game. Duke really kind of came out and exerted their dominance, and it led to a 19-point lead or 15-point lead at halftime.
Mhm.
Coming back in, UConn, really started chipping away. I kind of, and part of me thought, hey, maybe this game's over, but I just kept being intrigued, kept, looking in and said, hey, maybe they're making a mountain a comeback, but maybe they don't have enough time here. And Duke just kind of kept letting UConn get back into it. UConn had one of the worst shooting performances I think that I've seen from them all season as well. And UConn made it a tight game down the stretch, down to the last minute. And they got to a point where they were down 2 points, 10 seconds left. Duke has the ball. They're inbounding it from the side. They inbound it in and they try and pass it, and it gets tipped by 2 UConn defenders. The ball finds a UConn player. The UConn player then passes it to Alex Caravan, probably one of the greatest UConn players of all time, just because he's, been on 2 national championship teams in his 4 years there. And, we'll see what happens with them now after this. But that guy who's a senior, who has the pedigree, has the balls to say, hey, I'm going to pass this to Braylon
Wide
Mullins,
open.
who's a freshman who is wide open, but let's be honest, he's in Steph Curry territory. He's
He is.
not
He's
necessarily
deep.
at half court,
He's deep.
but this is what you would consider a
He's
four
25.
corner.
He's 25 out.
Yeah, I think even deeper than that,
26.
at this point. And not only does this kid have ice in his veins and balls the size of coconuts or watermelons, whatever you want to say, take the fruit of your choice, and
Guavas.
goes up, shoots this ball, and comes down. And not only does that ball not hit backboard, not even hit iron, it was nothing but net with 0.3 seconds left. The reaction from the UConn
Dan Hurley's
bench
mom
and Dan Hurley.
Dan Hurley's mom.
They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it.
Shit. That was the best part.
I was watching this game with my wife, and my wife loves basketball. So, and like, she humors me when it comes to the tournament. She's a big Celtics fan, so she watches the Celtics. Even she was going nuts watching that game. And like, this is what I said to her. This is why not only the tournament is the best, but this is why sports is the best reality TV that's out there, because moments like this cannot be replicated.
You can't make up.
In any other medium, any other version of television, or any other part of life. It is just so surreal. So a huge shout out to UConn and what they were able to do, and to just absolutely dominate. And it's setting up for a pretty awesome Final Four that we have coming up here.
But I also really quickly want to touch on the UConn Duke game, on just the fact that, if this was a Mike Krzyzewski, I know I'm butchering that name, team.
Mike Krzyzewski.
Mike Krzyzewski team. Would this have been a different outcome? Who knows?
I don't think
coaching, I think the coaching has a little bit to do with it. You have a coach that's been there, that's done that. That's obviously one before that's gone pretty far into it, that's been a college level player his whole entire life. And he had that team more prepared than Duke. They choked away, like you said. I think a 15-point deficit, and ended up, like you said, with the final possession with 10 seconds. Really, from a realistic fan standpoint, you're looking at that and you're thinking, okay, it's free throw time. You're not thinking, okay, they're going to inbound the ball, tip the pass off, and get a Hail Mary 3 off. So that for me, I thought just was amazing. Your breakdown of it was perfect. But yeah, let's move to the Final Four. I just kind of wanted to touch on Dan Hurley and his coaching success with that program.
Yeah, I would just say, like, they, in the last 4 losses that Duke has had in the tournament, so that also includes Coach K, they've blown leads of 14 points, 17 points, 13 points, and 19 points. So, like, I don't think that this is a John Shire issue. This is like Duke just choking when the moment gets big. The other thing that I would just want to call out of this game is, it's kind of funny that this is like a direct opposite of the 1990 game with Christian Laettner, which I think people look at as like the shot, as one of the most famous shots in college basketball history, because Duke won that Elite Eight game over UConn. So it felt very poetic to have the shoe be on the other foot. But I agree with you. Let's move on to the Final Four. We got two games coming up on Friday, April 4th. And first game here is UConn versus Illinois. So that game starts at 6:09. UConn right now is not favored. Illinois is favored right now at 2 points, with UConn getting 2. I still feel confident about UConn. I feel like they haven't played their best throughout this tournament, and I think they're coming off of a game where this just might lead to them, doing what they need to do in order to make the finals. And then game two, this is the game that I think, candidly, I'm most excited about: Michigan versus Arizona. Right now, Michigan is favored with Arizona by 1.5 points. Arizona getting 1.5. Personally, I feel like Arizona is the team that, to me, feels destined to go to the finals out of those two. But it's going to be a great game. You have two number one seeds going up against each other, so very excited to see where those go. And then the championship takes place next Monday, which is crazy that that's coming up on April 6th.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you touched on it perfectly. Again, the game that I'm really looking forward to is Michigan and Arizona, just because they've kind of dominated all throughout this tournament. So now we're going to see two juggernauts really kind of go at it, where they've been scoring tons and tons and tons of points. I think it's going to be the complete opposite. Please bet the under. I think it's going to be a much low scoring affair than whatever the line states to be. Just in my opinion, uh, that's kind of how those things kind of work out when you have two juggernauts going at it. It ends up being kind of a defensive game, and whoever that the grittier defensive team is kind of gonna win.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's time for us to stay on the basketball court though, and jump from college, and we're going to draft, and we're going to move towards the pros. And I think it's time for us to talk about the green team and how the team has done over the last week. And I think before we even talk about how they've done in the last couple of weeks, big shout out to the Celtics on winning 50 games, which I think that was a number going into this year most people, with the exception of Sam here, would say was probably not something that they were envisioning to happen. Will also tout Sam all season long for having a very low panic meter, as this team was kind of maybe having some trouble gelling right off the bat. So kudos to Sam for being consistent the entire way through.
Pull that clip up somewhere.
We will pull it up. And besides winning 50 games, they punched their ticket to the playoffs, right? So congrats to the Celtics for being the fourth team, the second team in the Eastern Conference. Two teams out west have already punched their ticket, as well as Detroit punched their ticket out
I
east.
think
So
OKC and
San
San
Antonio.
Antonio,
Yep. And then Detroit and the Celtics.
the
So
Celtics,
great job by them. They're still in prime position here to
competing,
end in the
scratching.
second seed. It does not seem like it's possible at this point, with 7 games left, to catch Detroit being 4 games behind, but that's okay. I think the week that was, they went 3-1. They basically won every game they played. They played 3 opponents. They played Oklahoma City, they played Atlanta Hawks, and they played the Charlotte Hornets. They split with with the Hawks because they played them on Friday and then on Monday this past week, with big wins coming on a win against the Thunder, a win against the Hawks on Friday, and then a big revenge win against the Hornets on Sunday as well. Before we or Saturday, excuse me. Before we dive in, though, I would love to chat a little bit about the OKC game, just because to me that was the game of the week. Everyone on both teams was fully healthy. So you didn't have anyone sitting it out on the Celtics side, unlike last game where you had no Jason Tatum and no Derek White. The full complement of players were out there. And the same thing for the Thunder as well. They had their full complement of players that came on out. And to me, this felt like a playoff game in the middle of March or towards the end of March. The atmosphere in the Garden was absolutely rocking. The competitiveness between the two teams, you could tell that they both wanted to get that win. And like, I think the thing that was the biggest thing to me is not only did the Celtics play well, but pretty much everyone showed out. And I want to start off with Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown played in that last game against the Thunder, and he first said that, like, his big thing with that game was he didn't get a lot of calls that he probably felt like he should have gotten, and basically called out Shea for basically fouling every single time. And then as soon as the defender makes their move, the foul goes against the defender, which is kind of BS. And it's something that has been called on out here recently a lot. Jaylen absolutely balled out. He had 31 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and took on the challenge of guarding Shea himself when it came down to it in the fourth quarter. So again, why is Jaylen Brown an MVP candidate? Not because he's just putting up numbers like that. That is important, but because he's one of the best two-way players in the game, and he showed it in that night. The other things that to me were really interesting with this game too was Jason Tatum also balled out. He didn't have to be the alpha, the 1A player. He's taking what the game is giving to him right now. And he had 19 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists. And then you have the rest of the team, the rest of the bench that really kind of came in and really stuffed the stat sheet. You have Kata, who's a starter, who had 13 points. You had Derek White, who had 12 points and 6 assists. You have Luka Garza, who didn't play a ton of minutes, only 12 minutes, but 7 points, 2 rebounds. Impactful minutes for him, spelling Kata. You have Pritchard, 14 points. You have Baylor Shireman, who to me has come on so strong in this last month. 11 points, 5 rebounds in 20 minutes off the bench. And then you got my boy Hugo with not a ton of time on the floor, but 3 minutes, 3 points, 9 minutes, 3 points, and 2 rebounds. So overall, just everyone contributed, and it was a total team effort. To me, that was great. To me, it was the easiest game of the week. And the thing that was great about this game too is they played to all their strengths. They hit their threes. When they were in the bonus, they took advantage and drove to the hoop. It was just a beautiful game. And to me, I can really envision this being a matchup that we see potentially in June. So if we're lucky.
Yeah,
Sam, what
and
are your thoughts?
you hit the nail on the head perfectly. I mean, with the thing about Jason Tatum coming back and the way that Jaylen Brown has elevated his game this season, it takes a lot of pressure off Jason Tatum when you think about it, because you have Jaylen Brown playing the game that he's already playing. He just needs to continue doing what he's been doing all season long. Not to say that what he's doing is easy, but he's been consistently doing the same thing on and on and on. And if he's consistently doing the same thing on and on and on, it takes a lot of pressure off of a guy like Jason Tatum, who, you kind of look to for that scoring. And if you have a dominating one who doesn't have that much pressure on him because there's someone else that's kind of assumed that 1A role because they've been out. And this situation really hasn't happened in basketball. The only other, crazy duo that that I can really think of real quick off the top of my head is kind of Shaq and Kobe. And again, I'm not saying that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are anything like Shaq and Kobe, but you have two players that are kind of complementing one another. The way that they're complementing each other is it's gonna open up things a lot more for our other complementary and role players that have been there and done that. And I'm confident with them taking those open shots. And then you add in Nikola Vujacic, and another stud down that's going to be able to be your center that's going to kind of even out that rotation, and you're looking at a really really deadly lineup moving into the playoffs. So I'm
Yeah,
really excited about this team.
and we're hoping to hear an update on Vucevic here, hopefully in the next week, because I think it's coming up on maybe about 4 weeks since that injury. But I also would love to give a shout out to Luka Garza, who's come in and played some meaningful minutes in the last month while Vucevic has been out. So I firmly believe that Luka Garza is going to win us a playoff game, because while he might get more limited minutes with Vucevic coming back, the dude plays impact basketball, and to me, like, those guys always find a way to impact the team in a positive way, especially when it comes to the playoffs. So a lot of great things are going right for the Celtics right now. And last thought on the Celtics before we move on and switch over to the ice is a shout out to Jason Tatum. Finally feels like he feels a little bit closer to himself and where he was prior to the injury. Still think it's going to take him till next season to work himself back to 100%. But he was named the Eastern Conference Player of the Week. He had a great week, and especially against the Hornets, where Jaylen Brown and Derek White didn't play, balled out, had 32 points, played excellent, and just shows that when some of those other stars aren't playing, Tatum can step up his game and let the game come to him and absolutely still dominate. Very, very excited about that. But I think it's a good time for us to switch over the ice, switch over from the court to the ice, and just talk a little bit about the week that was with Bruins. Bruins also went 3-1 this week, so a lot of 3-1 things going on for our teams. But they had a big 6 points, 3 big wins against the Sabres, Wild, and Blue Jackets. 2 of those games went to OT, where the Bruins ended up winning. So yeah, they could have ended up with a pity point here or there if they lost in overtime. But we're not here about pity points at this point, because we're driving towards the playoffs. We need every point that we can get. And the game to me that was the most important of those 3 was the game against the Blue Jackets. They were down 3 goals in the third period, came back to score 3 goals, especially late in the game, to send it to overtime. Wasn't able to get it done in overtime, but ended up winning in a shootout. And to me, like, that was just indicative of what this team has been. They are They grind. This team really loves playing for each other. Overall, I think that they have made some big strides this week. Are they out of the woods? No, they certainly aren't. They still have to continue to win and continue to put up some points. But as far as where they stand right now, they are 4 points over the Blue Jackets for that first wild card spot. And then there's 6 points over Ottawa, who is two points behind Columbus for that second wild card spot. And the Bruins are also 2 points behind Montreal for third spot in the Atlantic. So there's a lot of opportunity for them to move up or down here in the playoff race with 7 games left to go. And then I also just want to shout out one player on the team, just because I feel like this player is absolutely dominating. And I feel like the trade that they made for this player might go down as one of the best 1-for-1 trades ever. But shout out to Pavel Zacha. He's playing out of his mind. And I think the question that I would ask, not just you, but the general audience is, are the Bruins hitting their stride at the right time? I think that is something that when we think about, especially playoff hockey, they are basically playing for their playoff lives every single night. So every game is a playoff game atmosphere. And the way that this team is rallying and playing together, I don't think anyone wants to play this team in the playoffs. Will they make it out of the first round? I don't know. Could they go on a deep run? I don't know. But I think whoever they end up playing, whether it's in the first round or hopefully they go on a longer run, I think that team is going to have a lot to handle, because this team is certainly not going to roll over and die. So this team is going to fight and make it difficult. And that's the beauty of Stanley Cup playoff hockey.
Yeah, and I mean the one thing that I will chime in about, Houston entering the postseason is, you said it best. The one thing that I do have to say about hockey, I love playoff hockey,
It's
is
the
that
best.
when a team goes in hot, it doesn't matter if you're a 1 seed, doesn't matter if you're a 6 seed. It's you're playing your best hockey at the right time, and that's the one thing that I've always said, that if you can play the hot hockey at the right time, it's only going to bode well for you, especially going into the postseason, where you have other teams that kind of might be scratching, that are the 1 or 2 seed, 3 seed, or 4 seed, and you kind of go in with a full head of steam.
Yeah, and the Bruins are also playing right now as we speak. They're playing against Dallas. They are up 2-0 in the second period. So there's still a lot of game left. There's still, I think, about 36 minutes left in the game, so a lot can happen. But right now, if they can take this and get another 2 points, they're continuing to separate themselves and put themselves in a strong position to, maybe not even have to deal with the wild card and be a team that could be seeded. I don't think they'll end up one, but they could definitely get that third spot, where Montreal currently sits today, and maybe even the second spot as well. So a lot to happen there with the Bruins. But Sam, I think it's a good time for us to touch down on the baseball diamond. It's been a
Yeah.
while since we've been able to talk about some real meaningful games. So really excited to talk about the Sox and what's the week that was for them.
So we've had 2 teams that have gone 3-1. Now we have one team that's gone 1-3. Look at that paradoxical effect. I knew this was coming. People saying Caleb Durbin sucks. Oh, we need more offense. This, that, and the other thing. Yeah. There's something you need to take into consideration with this team, especially, is that the majority, and when I say the majority, I want to say 80% or 70% of the starters were playing in the World Baseball Classic. Not only were they playing in the World Baseball Classic, they were playing for other teams. So they were gelling with a whole group of other guys, and they were playing really high competitive level games, and they were going deep into the tournament. So I do expect a little bit of stuttering, the first couple of series, especially when you're going up against the really young team. And again, a lot of the listeners might not know, but Cincinnati, they're really young, they're really talented, and they just got a really great coach in Terry Francona. When everyone,
We don't know anything about that guy, right?
yeah, we don't know anything about Tito. So when everyone saw that, when I saw that we were starting off with them, I was happy that we went 1-2. Again, we haven't, when you take the Cincinnati Reds, for example, there's probably not many players that played for the World Baseball Classic. So they had all of spring training to kind of gel, get that camaraderie. And I'm not saying that the Red Sox aren't going to get there and not get that camaraderie. I mean, the best bromance in baseball right now is Marcelo Meyer and Roman Anthony. It's just they need a gel playing together is the big thing. They need to take some reps in games and get themselves going to do that. Visually, when they were performing in the WBC, a lot of people were calling it the World Boston Red Sox Classic, because they were literally the guys that were going off in the World Baseball Classic. So that really only bodes well for us. If anything, I'm glad that they're kind of scuttling right now. They're only really 2 and a half games behind for first place, so it's nothing crazy. It's not like we're in an 8-game hole. So again, it's going to ebb itself out. Ranger Suarez, the pitching's been great aside from Ranger Suarez. He had one bad game, but again, he played for Venezuela. He went deep with Venezuela. He had to get stretched out before the season even started, and his start got extended out. So
He's
I
Uncle E's
expect,
guy too. Uncle
yeah,
E said good things about him.
I was
I
gonna say, I
believe and I
believe
trust
Uncle
Uncle
E.
E. Yeah.
Exactly. His numbers are going to even out. It's, he's technically in his mind, he's still kind of in spring training mode. So give him another start or two, and then we'll go from there. And
I'm
again,
not worried. I'm not worried.
I mean,
I mean,
either.
I think I'm the resident Red Sox detractor of the group. And I think I don't know what happened. And it wasn't the World Baseball Classic. I think just something switched where I said, hey, like they have a strategy on how they want to play this year. Instead of me being a hater and, saying it's never gonna work, I'm gonna giving them the opportunity to see where it works. And just like, you were not panicked by a slow start by the Celtics, I'm not panicked here by a slow start by the Red Sox. I think, you talk to me in 3 weeks, and if we're still playing like this, then sure, the panic will go up because the games in March and April count just as much as the games in August and September do. But I have a feeling that they're going to right the ship here, and we're going to come back in a week or 2 weeks, and they might be sitting around 500. But that's okay. I think it's all about just where's the development, where are we going to start seeing the right strides. And like you said, this team hasn't had the right time to gel yet. So I think let's see where they stand here in a week's time. I'm not ready to give up and throw away the season after, basically 4 games. To me, that sounds silly. And I'm not going to do the same after even the next 2 weeks. It takes
Yeah.
more than that to
Give me
really
30
see where a
games,
team's at.
25 to 30 games kind of gives you an idea of what you have for a team.
Panic meter's at a 2. It's very low. It's very low. And this is a 1 to 10 scale, folks. So
That's where I was
if
with
I'm
the
not
Celtics.
panicked, you shouldn't be panicked either.
Agreed. Well, let's switch it over to, I think, what is your favorite time of the evening?
It is my favorite time.
My
You are so right.
eardrums might disagree, but
Well, it's the time to
I'm
talk
just
about the
kidding.
things that we hate, the things that we don't like, the things that are smelly, the things that make me go, yeah, OPU, get out of here, right? And then there are the things that are wondrous, stupendous, excellent, like make me want to get up and yell from the top of my lungs on a rooftop. Yeah. Who's got a yeah oh or an oh yeah this week? Sam, you want to kick it off? I see you chomping at the bit.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start off the, oh yeah, we kind of talked about it with the college basketball, the Rico Bosco and El Prez drama. One of the things is we talked about a pre-show is any publicity is good publicity. And yeah, he might have made himself look like a fool and look like an idiot, but he gained a follow from me. His antics, for people that are on social media and know what I'm talking about, he was like drawing like Frank the Tank bites on different fidget toys for himself and his anger. So for me, seeing Rico Bosco kind of just falling apart at the seams, and the pranks that the guys at Barstool pulled on them was just it was good banter. It was what we grew up with El Prez and Big Cat. Before, they didn't have the money to a sweatsuit, a legitimate sweatsuit from Michigan State and all these other schools, and then have legitimate cards and make it seem like the coach actually sent them. And it's just they haven't, even though they've gotten money, they haven't changed. And that, I think, to me, aside from what Rico is doing, the banter between all of the guys hasn't changed, and if anything, it's kind of reignited to what Barstool really is. It's for those listeners that are out there that don't know much about it, that I've only heard bad things. They're not a misogynistic kind of company or organization or whatever you want to call it. They were 4 dudes that were in college together that talk sports like we're doing right now. And then it kind of just grew from there. So for me, that was one of my oh yeahs.
Yeah, I think another oh yeah that we have here for this week is it was recently announced at the owners meeting that the Patriots are going to be on Hard Knocks on HBO, not this upcoming season in 2026, but coming up in 2027. So I think obviously, people being the head coach, it's a great opportunity to showcase who he is, as well as some of
A
the
lot of
great players that are
swearing.
on the team. Yeah, and then I think, there's just going to be a lot of great insight behind the scenes. And I think it's good it's not happening this year coming off of a Super Bowl loss. This team is also going to have a much tougher schedule in 2026. So it'll be
Mm,
interesting to see how they do and respond in 2026. And then I think that's where it's a good natural point to come in the next following season, in 27 before that season kicks off. Excited that it's not happening this year and more excited it's happening next year. So something to look forward to for us as Patriots fans down the road.
agreed. Another, oh yeah, I'll touch on it really quickly. Drake and Michael May were back in Boston. I believe they were at Boston Children's Hospital. Drake is back kind of divulging himself into the public and the community, and he did a shave his head foundation thingamajig.
And Michael got to shave his head, which was great
Yeah,
too.
yeah, that was fun. So it's just good to see that he's, a part of the community. He's kind of embracing, New England, that culture and everything about it. So that's kind of great to see. But well,
Oh
let's
yeah, for Drake as well. He was at the Charlotte Hornets game against the Celtics because it was in Charlotte. It's a North Carolina guy. They announced him as one of their own, which he certainly is. He played in North Carolina. He's from North Carolina. But I just thought it was so cool. He showed up with a ton of footballs and threw them out in the crowd, and just speaks to like the type of guy that Drake is. That yeah, while he's a New England Patriot, he also shows up for his hometown and where he's from. He remembers his roots. Just again speaks to the character of QB1 here for the New England Patriots.
agreed. And then
Second,
yeah, you
second,
can,
our only Yao this week. So you
yeah,
want to go
our
in on
only,
this one?
and we'll kind of touch on this a little bit was, and I'm sure everyone's heard about it on the news, was Tiger Woods yet again pulled over, DUI. Not
Well,
only
he flipped
that,
his car. He didn't just
oh,
get
flipped
pulled
the
over. He,
car.
he
Yeah,
flipped
yeah,
his car.
flipped his car.
This is
Sorry,
again he
flipped the
flipped his
car
car. This is not
again,
the first time.
and then also had pain pills that weren't prescribed to him on his person. Yeah, just not a good look. I was watching maybe 2 weeks ago, the New York Golf Club versus the Boston Golf Club, or maybe it was like the Jupiter, Florida.
The indoor golf league.
Yeah, I think so. And
Yeah,
Tiger's like the coach of the Jupiter, Florida one, and it was Florida versus Boston. And I was watching him and was like, oh, Tiger's doing really well again. And then 2 weeks later, he flips his SUV with
it's a
his, and
shame.
this mugshot's worse than the other one.
It's a shame. And what came out today too is he apparently told police that he was looking at his phone when the crash occurred. Tiger has ungodly money. He does not need to be driving a car. I hope something that he takes out of this is he hires a driver. He clearly has
Or
issues that
gets
he
a
needs to
better
work on.
agent.
Well, and he's also said he's stepping away, going into rehab. So I
Again,
wish Tiger nothing but the best. I hope he's able
agreed.
to get a handle on this because golf is always best when Tiger's involved. So hopefully Tiger's able to get right, and hopefully we're able to see him back competitively at some point. I don't know if that will be this year, but hopefully at some point down the road. And then our final, oh yeah, want to capitalize on this just because I think it's a fun one for us in the region for New England. Want to give an oh yeah to Jordan's Furniture as well as a yeah oh to their insurance policy. And for those that don't know, Jordan's Furniture had a promotion that was running leading up to the tournament that if both the Yukon men and women's basketball teams made it to the finals, they don't have to win. But if they make it to the finals, your furniture that you purchase between January 20th and March 1st is free on them. And currently, where we stand right now, the Yukon men and women's are in the final four, one win away from the championship games. So, if they are both able to win games this weekend, congratulations to all of you that shopped at Jordan's Furniture from January 20th to March 1st. And sorry to whoever is that insurance company that put a policy out for that, because you guys are about to, you know,
Get hit
basically
with $1 million
reimburse
claim.
millions and millions of dollars. So sorry, that sucks, but for the consumers, good for you
They'll
guys.
be fine. They'll be fine. They'll make that back up in 6 months.
Yeah. And I think it's the perfect time for us to segue and take the pike and talk a little bit about what's coming down the pike. And let's talk about the Celtics. Celtics have 3 games coming up this week. None of them, I would say, are super noteworthy, but I am going to choose the game on Wednesday against the Heat,
Agreed.
against as a team that probably is the game of the week. And that's because Spoelstra is still the coach of the Miami Heat, and he always has that team playing hard. And it seems like they're always especially pesky against Celtics. So that's the game of the week for me. For the Bruins, they're playing the Lightning on Saturday. The Lightning are by far and away the best team in the Atlantic this year. They think that if the
Yes.
Bruins are able to take that game in Tampa, against the Lightning, that is a huge, huge sign that this team can not only be competitive, but they might be a team that can make some noise come playoff time.
And continue to play good hockey. Hot hockey.
Yep.
Hot.
And how about on the
Lastly,
Diamonds?
yeah, right. Lastly, we have the Red Sox. They are against Houston, but they're taking on Houston for another 2. Then they're on to the home opener, and they will be facing off against the San Diego Padres for 3 games. See our old friend Xander Bogaerts, and then on Monday they will start a 3-game series with the Milwaukee Brewers. So we'll
Let's
keep
get
you
some
updated
wins.
on those games. Yeah, let's get some.
Let's get some wins across the board. Get some teams that are in playoff position with the Celtics and Bruins continuing
Agreed.
to put themselves in strong position. And I feel confident that the Red Sox are going to go on a little bit of a run here as well. So all things are
Agreed.
looking up for the Boston sports teams. I think with that, I think it's time for us to bid you adieu and see you all
Yeah.
next week.
In the words of our great maestro, near, far, wherever you are, thank you for tuning in and have a good week.
And we'll see you all next week. See ya.